Russia says corridors in Kyiv, Mariupol, Kharkiv and Sumy will be open today at the request of the French President Emmanuel Macron. It comes after two failed attempts over the weekend.
OK, let's get an update on what happened over the weekend militarily. Robert Fox, who's defence editor with the Evening Standard, is here. They're saying the Russian advance, they keep saying stalled, but they're making inroads, Robert.
They've committed 90% of all that force that was sitting around for a few months,
a few weeks, and he ain't got much reserve. I know that they say that every week is a crucial week. If he doesn't do it this week, it's going to take months. And I think that there are problems of command and control. It's a very posh way of people not obeying orders or orders not being given. The tactic, they thought there were going to be almost lightning, I daren't say surgical strikes into centres like Kyiv, particularly, and Kharkiv. It hasn't happened.
But why hasn't it happened? I mean, surely that's relatively easy to do.
Really?
No, but if you're programming a computer and you're pointing at a target...
It doesn't work like that.
Why?
Terrain. And very narrow roads and a lot of quite old-fashioned equipment and tactics. What they're trying to do with Kyiv is close the circle. You're quite right. In nearly 10 days now, they haven't closed the circle, and they're committing about between a quarter and a third of their effort there. And the other thing, which is absolutely a dead giveaway, is that they're not overusing air. What are we hearing? These poor old these refugees, poor young, being smashed up with indiscriminate artillery. Two things. They're not using precision air attack, and they're not using trained infantry on the ground, because I think it's beginning to show they daren't do the latter.
Why?
Because of discipline and because young Russian soldiers, part of them are for hire, they're professional soldiers, but quite a large part are still conscripts. Some will have been told that they were going on exercise, and they will find that they are fighting their cousins. And people say, one of the commentaries is, well, they'll get ruthless as they did in Aleppo and in Grozny when the Russians really went for broke in Syria and in the two wars in Chechnya. No, it's not the same. It's much too close. It's much too close in every sense to home.
So, Robert, you kind of agree then with Admiral Sir Tony Radkin. He's the Defence Chief of Staff, who's saying that...
Who am I to disagree with him?
Well, I mean, he's saying, isn't he, that the Russian forces have been, to quote, decimated in the last 12 days or so. That being said, Putin's spoken to President Erdogan of Turkey over the weekend, said he absolutely is determined to take Kyiv. He's got the stomach for the long haul. Boris Johnson today saying dark days yet to come. And he's right, isn't he? The Kyiv is going to be his ultimate prize, and he's not going to stop until he gets it.
Well, he doesn't win the country unless he gets Kyiv. No, it is part of, psychobabble, it's the psychodrama of Putin. Putin, we now realise, has been obsessed with Kyiv above all, and Ukraine, because Kyiv is a great founding capital of the culture and literature and spiritual life of that area, which means more and more to Putin and his family, such that it is. And so he's fixated on this. Who am I to disagree with Tony Radkin? From what I am reading, and I've had some very elaborate reports, I think it's something slightly different. The Russian lineup is becoming frayed in a way that they didn't expect. The thing that we're not hearing and we're not seeing, and they haven't got too much of it, but those weapons that were supplied to the Ukrainians, the over-the-shoulder LAW anti-tank weapons and the Stingers, really have had an effect, because one thing that's happening that British and American analysis is showing, they're not bringing the command forward, and you need to bring a lot of the command to look down on the ground in the air. They don't come forward with command helicopters, and there is not too much fixed-wing aircraft. Occasionally they do appear and they do bomb, but it's Stalingrad tactics, and it's the terrible battles that took place in 1943 across Ukraine. Ukraine took 44% of all the Soviet Union casualties in mainland Europe in the Second World War, and it's a punch bowl yet again.
We talk a lot about Kyiv. What about Odessa? And why is it so important? Why would this be so crucial, particularly in this week or 10 days ahead?
It's critical because that way you shut off 3/4 of the commercial maritime trade
So this is in the south of Ukraine.
And it's going to be very interesting should Putin try, and he's cynical enough, to try and make Ukraine, if he can't get the whole thing, he's going to make it totally landlocked. Then it blows up in his face, because if it becomes totally landlocked, it will become more and more looking to the western border, because the way we're seeing at the moment, and I'm just guessing, they're beginning to realise they're not going to get the west of the country. They just don't have the forces, Eamon.
Yeah,
but
they've got the north, the south.
Not really,
east.
because they've not occupied yet. This is the message I'm getting from Mariupol, from Kherson, where the fighting has been going on for days and days and days. And unless they bring the mercenaries in, they brought in Wagner Corps. They've been in, by the way, and they pulled out from the Kharkiv
So let's talk
battle.
about these mercenaries.
let's explain to people who they are and what they are.
The mercenaries are being brought in not just to decapitate Zelensky, which would obviously help with capturing Kyiv.
That sounds as if they're going to behead the
Okay,
man.
sorry,
Yeah, but they're not up to the job either. They've got a very, very spotty past. They're gangsters. They're hired. They're guns for hire, and they were originally founded by a man called Yevgeny Prigozhin, who had the title, very attractively, of being Putin's cook, because he started the Concord Catering Agency when the gang got together round the mayor of Petersburg immediately in the 2 or 3, 4 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It is gangster politics. I mean, you will hear that phrase, and Karen Pierce, our ambassador in Washington, uses it very effectively, but it is true. And the gang, and this is now where the focus also must be, no, they're all in it together, because if one falls, Putin falls, the whole lot, the whole house comes down.
Gosh. Fascinating. Robert, got to leave it there. Robert Fox, defence editor of the Evening Standard. Thanks for your take on things.